Hello and thanks for joining me. Freedom of speech is under threat. The Russian invasion and the war against Ukraine has spawned calls for Western-based social media platforms to close down their operations in Russia. Several social media platforms have done that to the sanctimonious glee of the liberal Western middle class, many of whom cannot conceive of life without Google, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, TikTok and the like. While it has inconvenienced a certain demographic of the Russian civilian population, its effect on the Russian political leadership and senior military is minimal. Notwithstanding this, I hope this largely symbolic gesture does contribute to the ending of the war and suffering in Ukraine. The pressure on Elon Musk's Starlink internet to cut off its service to Russia elicited this response on Twitter. Starlink has been told by some governments, not the Ukraine, to block Russian news sources. We will not do so unless at gunpoint. Sorry to be a free speech absolutist. Judging by the responses to the press stories about this statement, the majority of people who comment on online news stories thought Starlink should block Russian news sources. There was, however, a sizable minority with whom I agree that said Starlink had done the right thing. Before explaining why I think that, it's worth remembering this quotation from Hiram Johnson, said during World War I. "The first casualty when war comes is truth." I don't for 1 minute believe what the Russian news media is saying about the invasion and war in Ukraine, but that would be all the Russian civilian population would hear and believe if their only source of information was the state media. I'm also aware that Western news media are selective in the stories they choose to publish and are biased in how and by whom those stories are told. David Sedgwick said, "News is not an objective reality. It is simply a collection of items selected by the propagandist to further specific objectives. The public see and hear what the society's powerful forces wish them to see and hear." We in the West have the luxury of a wide range of news outlets and social media channels from which to get information on which to base our opinions, including from the war zone, as Starlink is ensuring that Ukraine has access to the internet. We're able to express our own opinions about events, as did a fellow from Lancashire who wrote to his local newspaper expressing the view that the only way to end the war quickly was for Ukraine, and by implication the West, to agree to Russia's demands. Had Starlink given in to the pressure from those governments, we would be prevented from having a meaningful discussion with ordinary Russians. Nor would they be able to learn the truth of what's happening or to form their own opinions. You might say that pressuring Starlink into blocking Russian news media would not stop Western media such as the BBC World Service or Voice of America, to name but two, from broadcasting to Russia. They've been doing that for years, and the Russians and Soviets before them have been blocking the broadcasts for just as long. Preventing access to internet services delivered through telephony is easy if you control the Earth station, as the Russian government does. Because Starlink is satellite-based and is not controlled by the Russian government, choking off access is very much more difficult, especially as 77% of the population of Russia has smartphones. Furthermore, it could hamper Ukraine's cyber warfare efforts. The Russian invasion and war in Ukraine has caused a massive increase in the global price of natural gas and oil. While only 3% of the UK's imports of natural gas and almost double that in monetary value for oil come from Russia, other European countries, notably the Netherlands and Germany, are more reliant on Russian gas and oil. Nevertheless, we in the UK are seeing a huge increase in our energy bills, due in no small part to the Russian invasion and war in Ukraine. Concern has been expressed across the political spectrum about the UK's dependence on imported energy. There have been calls for the UK to become less dependent on imported natural gas and oil. Some have called for the UK to be energy independent. Part of that discussion, we've yet to have a serious debate about it, is a review of the government's drive to a net zero carbon economy. There have been calls to abandon that goal, or at least to have a longer time frame for achieving it. A debate has been called for on the wider subject, including building small nuclear power generators, using coal and fracking. The orthodox view is that climate change is man-made and is caused by the emission of carbon dioxide and greenhouse gases. Even animal husbandry, particularly cattle, is not exempt. Consequently, we must move to a net zero economy. The debate, such as it is, has not been about how we should move the economy and our lifestyles to that position, but about how soon it should be done. The government's target date is 2050. At the Labour Party conference in 2019, motions were adopted calling on the party to work towards net zero by 2030. That is now the Labour Party's policy. What has not been seriously debated is how it is to be done and what the real cost will be. It's well known that espousing an opinion on social media that is contrary to the orthodox view on climate change, as well as certain other subjects, is likely to result in your account being suspended or even closed. The orthodox position, however, ignores the inconvenient truth that unless China, USA and India also achieve net zero carbon economies more or less in step with the rest of the world, the significant sacrifices the rest of the world is being asked to make will be for nothing. The reality is that behind the comforting statements these countries make, they're the three biggest polluters in the world, Russia being the fourth, they're doing absolutely nothing to achieve net zero. Domestically, attempts are being made to have a serious debate on energy security and net zero carbon emissions. A campaign group called Vote Power Not Poverty planned a series of meetings to gather support for a referendum on going net zero carbon, at which Nigel Farage was to speak. Their first meeting was to be held in Bolton in Greater Manchester. It seems that holding views opposed to the current climate change policies is enough to get you cancelled by a football club that is mid-table in the third tier of English football. This is from the Bury Times of the 8th of March 2022. Mr Farage had been due to speak at a Vote Power Not Poverty rally, which campaigns against net zero environmental policies, but which critics have accused of opposing measures crucial to tackling climate change. A statement issued by the club said, "A Vote Power Not Poverty rally scheduled for later this month at the Bolton White's Hotel will not be happening. The event has been cancelled by Bolton Wanderers Football Club and is not something the club and business wishes to be associated with." So much for free speech. Now we have a football club telling us what opinion we may or may not hold. This arbitrary decision brings no credit to either the football club or the hotel. The threat to our freedom of speech is insidious and is coming from an ever-growing number of organisations that are so pusillanimous they would rather prevent free speech than run the risk of being criticised. They deserve our opprobrium, not our support. Freedom of speech is precious. It must be protected by us all. I give a link in the description below to a video made by Chris Green, who, ironically, is the MP for the constituency in which Bolton Wanderers Football Club ground stands. It's a powerful statement of why free speech is important. To all those calling for restrictions on holding opinions that are different to their own and seeking to prevent those opinions being expressed openly and lawfully, I say this to you. You either have free speech or you do not. When it's lost, it's gone for everybody, including you. So be careful what you wish for. You might just get it.